Hey, how you doing? Justin here. In this lesson, I want to give you a sneak peek into bar chords for beginners. If you're following my course along, you've already encountered F, which is in fact a bar chord. So we're going to be like extrapolating that and seeing other ways we can use that very F chord. But do remember, this is just a taste. We're going to deep dive big time into bar chords in the intermediate grades. But most beginners, when they reach my grade 3 area, advancing beginners, they need to spend some time consolidating all of the stuff they've learned, getting to know all of the chords and the embellishments and the strumming patterns and the scales and all of that stuff we've covered. Should be usually 3-6 months at least exploring songs, all of those techniques. And in that consolidation phase, you're very likely to encounter occasionally songs that use bar chords. So a lot of beginners seem to find the whole concept of bar chords to be a pretty scary one, but there's absolutely no harm at having a go at things before you're really ready for them. The only thing that can be kind of bad is if you go in expecting to be able to do stuff and then you're disappointed because you can't do it. But if you're going to try things that are kind of above your grade, that's totally fine. In fact, I would encourage you to have a go, particularly things like bar chords. Just feeling out what's involved with those things. You might find that they're actually easier than you thought. Good news for any of you guys with what I call farmer fingers, fairly large hands, big strong hands. You might find bar chords actually really easy compared to trying to squash your fingers together for open chords. So you'd be like, "Whoa, wow, I didn't think I'd be actually able to do this." If you find them a bit of a struggle, you start going like, well, what are the things that I really need to work on here? Like maybe I don't know the names of the notes on the bottom two strings properly. Maybe I skimped on the power chords and I didn't really learn how to shift the power chords around properly. Or maybe I didn't do what Justin said and keep my thumb around the back of the neck. And so the muscle here is actually a little bit weak. Maybe I need to go and do some work on strengthening my hand. So it can be quite a revealing thing. So before we get into how to play and use bar chords, there's a few skills that you really should have under your fingers before we keep going. First thing, you need to know your bar chord F. If you can't play the bar chord F, if you're struggling to get all of those notes ringing out clearly, maybe you want to spend a bit more time on that before moving on with any of the stuff further on in this lesson. Second thing, you should know the notes on the thickest two strings. I'm not saying that like you should know all of them instantly, but at least be able to work them out. Ideally, you'd be able to find them pretty quickly, and it'd be really helpful if you also know your power chords and how to use them. That kind of ties in with knowing those root notes on the thickest two strings as well. So I'd strongly suggest you check those things out and be kind of confident with that before moving on with anything else in this lesson. So here is our F bar chord, remembering to try and check the notes, make sure that everything's ringing out clearly. If the thinnest two strings are a bit dead, you need to press harder. If they're rattly, your fingers are probably not positioned well or not pressing hard enough. So just go give it a bit of a strum, make sure that the F chord is ringing out properly first. But the good news actually is F is one of the hardest of the bar chords to play in this shape because it's so close to the nut, which is actually where the strings are furthest away from the neck. So if we move this whole shape all of the way up to the 5th fret, okay, so first finger is in the 5th fret, we play that. This is actually an A chord. If we move it down one, we got ourselves a G sharp. Again, knowledge of the note circle is a really helpful thing here. So you should be able to find that you can now play like an F, move it up one, F sharp, move it up to G, move it up, G sharp or A flat. Remember that it goes G sharp or A flat. Same chord, okay? N harmonic equivalents. If you're doing my theory course, you'd know this stuff already. A, next one is A sharp or B flat or B. You get the idea that that one shape can move around. So if you're playing a song, Beatles are a really good example. A lot of the chords in Beatles songs are easy, but then they throw in one. There'll suddenly be a C minor or a C sharp minor, an F sharp minor. So you're like, well, what is that? We're going to check out the minor chords in just a sec, by the way. But this idea, the concept of moving the shapes up and down the neck, that's the amazing thing about bar chords. With open chords, there's no way of playing a G sharp chord. Once you know your bar chords, actually a G sharp is just as easy as a regular G in bar chord land. Okay, that's the beautiful thing about them. Like I said, I've just given you a quick run into this, but we're going to go into loads more detail on how to play these bar chords and all of the tips and tricks about hand manipulation and finger strength and the mechanics of it all. That all gets covered in the intermediate grade. So So don't be in a rush for that. Remember, this is just a taster, help you explore the things and maybe play a few tunes that you'd like to play. Okay, next chord we're going to check out is this one. This is a B minor chord. Very, very common chord, the B minor. You often find it in songs in the key of G and the key of D, which are both common kind of open chord songs. So you'll often find like nearly all of the song will be easy, and then suddenly there's a B minor, and you're like, oh, I can't play the song now, I don't know B minor. Well, now you can. It's actually a relatively easy bar chord. So if you know the F bar chord, which we just talked about, so I'm hoping you know that one by now. If you move it diagonally down, so that would be down one string and up one fret. So the first finger is now in the second fret of the fifth string. The rest of the shape is exactly the same. Okay, so it's the same shape. Everything's moved down one string and up one fret. So the tip of the first finger needs to mute the thicker string. Again, we're going to go in a lot more detail on this later on, but just as a starting thing, just try and tip the first finger there to mute the thicker string. What you don't want is to have your bar going right over and covering that thicker string. You want the tip of the first finger just to be muting the thicker string. Remember how easy it is to mute strings accidentally when you didn't want to mute the strings, when you're first learning your open chords. Only takes a little touch to mute a string. So first finger just touching up there just a little bit to mute the thicker string. Second fret, fourth fret, third fret, and the second fret there. So the bar is actually only playing the fifth string and the thinner string. They're the only two that the first finger has to hold down. So sometimes it can be kind of round. Don't feel like it has to be a big bar to cover all of the strings. It can be slightly rounder. And even if you muted, if your bar wasn't good enough and you couldn't play that thinner string, actually that works just as well. So muted, second fret, fourth fret, third fret, and then you're not even barring. So now first finger is just playing that one note. It's a nice way of dealing with the B minor. But of course, we don't have any open strings, so it's a movable shape. So here's a B minor here, the second fret. If we move it up, we get a C minor. C minor is a really, really common one in sort of Beatlesy songs in the key of G, where you'd have a G, C, B minor to G. Again, real common. They call that the Beatles tricks, used a lot by like Oasis and anyone that was heavily influenced by the Beatles. So C minor, really good one to get down. D minor can play up here as well. E minor or E flat minor. Okay, it's super easy to move this shape up and down. There's C sharp minor. That's another common one, often when you've got like an A chord. C sharp minor to D to E. That kind of progression is pretty common, right? A, C sharp minor. Maybe you play D like that. But that one's a bit of a tricky bar chord. We'll worry about that one a little later down the way, I suspect. Well, seeing as I've just played it, I should explain it. This is the bar chord that most people struggle the most with. This is an A-shaped bar chord. Like these ones that we looked at here, these are E-shaped bar chords because they look like E chords in the open position, right? So there's an E open chord and then we move that shape up. This one is an A-shaped one, but we don't play it like normally you'd play an A chord like that. If you refinger it like that and then play a bar chord, it's just a bit awkward, right? So we tend to use a little bar with the third finger. But it's actually a lot harder than it would first appear. That's probably the hardest of the bar chords, the biggest stepping stone. So that's one I would just encourage you not to worry about. Once you learn your bar chords, you realize that every chord can be played in two different places. So even if you had a C chord here at the third fret, that's a pretty awkward chord for most beginners to play, but you could play the C there. Okay, C chord, you're probably going to just end up playing an open chord actually, but say a C sharp chord. Let's say you saw a C sharp major chord. You'd be like, I can't do that, that one's too awkward. So you have to play right far up the neck, but it's still okay to be able to do that, and it's easier. I don't recommend that you go into the A-shaped major chords. The minor ones, yeah, the fifth string root minor chords, great. Fifth string root major chords, a little bit tricky. I wouldn't go there yet. And while we're on chords that are a little bit tricky that you could kind of get away with, maybe just have a little bit of an explore of, the E-shape minors. Particularly one that comes up very commonly again is F sharp minor. Now we've already learned F, right? So F sharp. So there was F, regular chord. We move it up one fret, there's an F sharp chord. Okay, because there's the root note. To get a minor, all we do is lift off second finger. Just the same as when we had an E chord, and we lifted off first finger, we had E minor, E minor. Exactly the same thing here. Now F sharp minor. The problem is that string, the third string, under most people's bars, they lift it off and they get this. Actually, the string doesn't ring out properly. You have to really work then on your bar strength. If you want to play an F sharp minor, you need a good bar. It's holding down the thinnest three strings and the thicker strings, all with the first finger. So that one requires quite a lot of muscle strength there. If you've got naturally strong hands or big hands, you probably find that F sharp minor chord okay. If you've got small hands or weak hands, then you probably find that one a bit of a struggle. But it's not a bad idea to just have a bit of a go at it. Every few practice sessions you encounter that chord and you have a bit of a go, you're going to start building up that hand strength to be able to do it. It isn't just hand strength. There are a bunch of technical things that you can help, the body mechanics that'll help you be able to play the tune. But again, we're leaving that for the intermediate grades. If you're in a desperate hurry to learn it, then there'd be no harm on flicking forward a little bit and having a go at, watch the lessons on the E-shaped minor chords and being able to play it. But I really feel there's a lot of benefit to consolidating things that you know. So if you're a beginner and you're in my grade 3 of the course, just be cool with really getting that stuff solid before you're trying to be in a hurry to move ahead and learn new things. Much better be able to make music, be able to use simple things really well than really or more advanced things badly. Okay, if you're trying to play a song with open chords and you can rock it out at a party and entertain your friends and have a sing-song, make it sound good, maybe you're a songwriter, you can make it sound really cool. That's much better than flapping around with bar chords where most of the notes are not ringing out clearly and you're fumbling getting to them and therefore it's knocking your rhythm out of time. Yeah, much better to consolidate, have a really solid foundation, but also valuable is having a little bit of a reach around to try out these things that are a little bit more advanced, figuring out what skills you need to be able to get to them, and they'll feel a little easier when you go properly to learn them as well. So what I'd encourage you to do now is to find some songs that are mostly open chords, but maybe have one, possibly two, bar chords in them, just so you get a little bit of a taste of what to expect when you learn bar chords proper. It also might help you out with some songs where nearly the whole song is easy open chords. You can play it, but maybe there's like a B minor in the bridge, that kind of thing. It's very, very common. So it's worth having a go at these chords, figuring out what skills you're going to need when you learn them properly, and it'll expand the repertoire of songs that you can choose from in your consolidation phase, moving from beginner grade to intermediate grades. If you consider yourself an advancing beginner guitar player that is mostly open chords, haven't got too deep into bar chords, maybe exploring a little bit power chords, that kind of thing, do go and check out the grade 3 lessons over on the website. I've added a whole heap of really interesting and fun things that you might want to try out. Stuff that's not too difficult but can really add a lot of interest to your playing if you're a beginner. Things like moving basic chord shapes around, interesting strumming patterns, picking out notes from the chords that you've got, bar chords with open strings, a whole heap of fun things like that. Do go and give it a look. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have yourself a fantastic day, and I'll see you for plenty more lessons very soon. Bye-bye.